evening. Welcome to Trending at 10 p.m. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the show tonight, to deny a Bengali meat in his or her cuisine is quite unthinkable. Bengal is the second largest consumer of meat in the country, but now sales are evaporating after news broke of a disgusting scam where carcass meat from garbage dumps was being mixed with edible meat and passed off as something that citizens could consume. The meat of carcasses could have been from anything, from any animal, dogs, cats, you name it. Tonight on Trending, is it safe to eat meat in Kolkata? That's our big debate tonight. But first, some of the trending headlines. First, the stories on ndtv.com. Prime Minister Modi turned the first of his 3 rallies in Karnataka today into an unceremonious roast of Rahul Gandhi, with the punchlines all centering on one theme: the Congress president's lineage as his only qualification to lead the Congress. Well, quite clearly, the war of words between the Congress and the BJP clearly continues in the run-up to the Karnataka elections. It's been a day of tweets and counter-tweets as well. Well, we're talking about West Bengal in this program. Here's news from Kolkata. Different, of course. It's quite unthinkable in Kolkata, where moral policing is rare, that a couple have been beaten up for apparently standing too close to one another on board a metro train. And some of the big trends on Twitter. On May Day comes the first single, Semma Veittu, from the much anticipated Rajnikant movie Kala. And the marriage of Sonam Kapoor with Anand Ahuja, quite the buzz on Twitter. But first, let's quickly move on to our top story. One man's meat is another man's poison. And never has this been truer than for Kolkata today. While some people have been raking in money by selling rotten meat in and around the city, perhaps even dog or cat meat, Kolkata is gagging at the thought. The sale of meat and meat products have crashed in markets and restaurants. The Minister for Consumer Affairs has gone off meat himself.
The Minister for Consumer Affairs loves his tangri kebab, but that love affair has turned rocky.
आप आजकल चिकन खा रहे हैं?
नहीं. If there is a country chicken which I get in New Market, that in front of me is cut, then I will have. Otherwise, I am not taking chicken from out.
Many Kolkatans can't stomach it anymore either. Rotting chicken and packaged meat mixed who knows with the flesh of what animal carcass. This racket was unearthed on the 19th of April.
It has become a cottage industry. It has spread all over, like Narkeldanga, Uluberia, Bajbaj, all over places. So I think it's a very scary situation. So people should avoid eating meat outside their home.
You are eating?
No, I'm not.
The Association of 800 top restaurants in the city has put out an advisory to members saying, beware.
We have given advisory to all our members regarding procurement from reputed suppliers. There is no reason for people to scare about the quality of chicken or meat.
हम लोगों को बोला कि नहीं, हम लोग के पास जो आता है चिकन, तो बढ़िया चिकन आता है.
तो लॉस कितना हो रहा है आपको?
Loss 60%.
But how has the racket flourished under the nose of the police, civic bodies and the government?
इंडियन डेमोक्रेसी में कभी-कभी आंख बंद रखता है, अब आंख खुला रहता है. अभी आंख खुल गया, व्यवस्था करना है.
The government has promised a crackdown, including setting up incinerators at animal carcass dump yards so that the ghastly problem, can be nipped in the bud. But for the next few weeks or days at least, Kolkata's only non-veg food of choice will probably be fish. In Kolkata, Monideepa Banerjee, NDTV.
So just how bad is this problem, considering that the full impact of this rotten meat scam is only now becoming understood? And the question is this: for how long has this continued? And the numbers right now are actually quite frightening. There's a report of 50% slump in the demand for chicken in restaurants, a 10% slump in over-the-counter sale of chicken, a 30% drop in mutton sale, a 20% dip in the sale of beef and pork in the city. So it is a big concern. Joining us now to look at this, Prantik Chakravarti is a leader of the Trinamool Congress. Thanks very much for being with us. Garga Chatterjee, the TMC supporters, he's also a doctor. Vikram Puri, the well-known hotelier, here with me in the studio. He's got hotels and restaurants in Kolkata. Fuad Halim, the CPM spokesperson. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Mr. Chatterjee, let me come to you first. If there's a 50% slump in the demand for chicken in restaurants and 30% in mutton sales in a city like Kolkata, in a state like West Bengal, which is second in the country for the consumption of non-vegetarian food, consumption of meats, wouldn't the government admit that it is a disaster right now? It is a healthcare issue? Mr. Chatterjee, can you hear me?
Which Chatterjee are you talking to?
Mr. Garga Chatterjee, I'm talking to you.
Okay. So I think first of all on this whole issue, just to make one point, is that Bengal police has to be congratulated for having busted what is probably a 10-year-old problem and that has manifestations in multiple states. That's what's the news that's coming out. Having said that, I think much of the meat that is sold in Bengal everywhere is actually fresh. You get your chicken, you cut it out in the market and you get it. So when we're talking over-the-counter restaurant, we're talking about a very slim thing. Having said that also, the scare which has been created, because the volumes of meat that can be put in the animal carcass area and the demand are very out of proportion. So clearly a very small proportion of the meat is adulterated or the bad stuff.
If 20
but the scale
tons,
around it is much
if
wider.
20 tons,
wider.
no, but 1 second, 20 tons of carcass meat packed in 1,000 plastic bags was seized on the 26th of April from a private cold storage in Narkeldanga in Kolkata. 20 tons, and you say that it's small. You know, I mean, it may be small compared to the overall consumption, but
No. Exactly.
No, but this in itself is an indicator of how bad it could be. Fuad Halim, let's look at this from a healthcare standpoint. 1 second.
20 tons means 20 tons of meat.
20 tons of meat is a huge amount located in one place. It's been found in other places as well. But Fuad Halim,
exactly.
The point that was mentioned by Mr. Chatterjee over there was that this is a 10-year-old problem. It's a problem which has existed for a long time. Do you believe that this is being hyped by the media, that the large amount of meat is still safe to consume? Or do you believe this is a healthcare disaster for which the Trinamool needs to be held responsible?
The first part is that I think so you will miss the point if you just look at the figures of 20 tons of carcass meat were recovered, because one has to understand that this 20 tons of carcass meat was actually being added to fresh meat that's available in the market. So if that 20 ton gets multiplied many-fold, if you see the amount of meat that is actually used to contaminate, direct carcass meat is not sold in the market. So I think so Garga misses the point that this meat was used as part and parcel of contaminating fresh meat that's available in the markets in Calcutta. The number 2 point is that when this racket started off, I think so is something that the investigation has to conclude, and anybody trying to what you call cast aspersions as to how long this racket has been going on, I think so is trying to look at a political way out of the problem. So I think so rather than looking at it politically, that comes to the third question at this point of time. There's definitely going to be serious health impacts because of these meats that have been made available in the market, especially because the chemicals that these people have been using to treat the meat to make it odorless, to make it palatable, are very, very what you call toxic chemicals. Formalin impacts the liver, it impacts the kidney, and it's going to have long-term impacts, especially young children who have consumed it. They will most probably go into liver and kidney failure in the near future. So this is definitely a significant issue that has come up. The investigation has to conclude as to what volumes of this type of meat has been left into the market, who are the target groups who have consumed it, whether we can create a profile for helping the people who have consumed this type of meat. And definitely, the administration was at some point of time has failed. Because, there's a huge chain that actually closes the loop.
Mr. Halim, one moment. I just want to bring in Vikram Puri over here. Mr. Puri, you run restaurants in Kolkata. Are people worried? Are people consuming less meat?
Well, Personally, for my restaurants, I don't think there is a problem in meat consumption. I think for hoteliers, and I'll speak on behalf of a lot of the restaurateurs in Calcutta, there is a process which we follow when we buy our meat. Now, when we buy our meat, all the suppliers have to be FSSAI registered. They have to be registered with the KMC. It's a prerequisite before we will allow someone to supply into our outlets. After the supply has come, there is a second check which is done at the kitchen level. So we ensure that the quality of the meat in terms of the color is correct. It should be pink. It should look fresh. Typically, it takes about 3 hours from the time it is culled to get into my kitchen. We have to see the blood.
What
is
about
it curdled or
processed
not?
meat?
Sorry?
What about processed meat?
So processed meat is not something that we actually consume. So for hotels and restaurants, all the produce will be fresh. So if I'm not going to, even if I'm using chicken sausages, it's something that's going to be made in my kitchen. It's not something that is going to be bought off the shelf.
But do you mean to say that hotels in Kolkata don't serve sausages which they buy from distributors?
Well, I'm sure, but if they do, they buy it again from FSSAI approved suppliers.
But how does anybody know what goes into those sausages?
So
because a part of it is, and it's a fact now, could be contaminated meat.
So I think you have to look at who you're buying from. So if your supplier is a reputed supplier.
But does the supplier necessarily know where the meat is coming from? Because it's an entire chain.
I would like to think so.
The scam may not start at the level of the supplier. It might start at a much lower level.
So let me
the meat which is supplied was actually coming in packets.
Yes.
Right? It was properly packaged and it was being distributed. Nobody knew till now what was actually inside it.
I think, Vishnu, is a little different because when you are buying, say, processed meat from a supplier which has got an FSSAI stamp, you're looking at reputed companies. Now, I have no reason to believe that the government in its endeavor with the FSSAI system, there is any flaw in that. We believe the fact that if there is a supplier which is FSSAI registered, which has a Kolkata Municipal Corporation registry, we believe in the authenticity of that.
Why would the Indian Railways then for the moment stop the storage of meat?
I can't comment on sentiments. I can't comment on that.
It's not sentiment. They cater to lakhs of people every single day.
Well, I think
IRCTC has done this.
I can't comment on what the Railways has done, but I can comment on our process and the process which is followed by hotel industry.
I just want to reflect briefly on what has been done in terms of this meat. I mean, how does one cart rotten meat? Dog meat, cat meat, God knows what meat. Well, apparently what was being done is that this carcass meat, after being processed with chemicals such as formaldehyde, we were just referring to that a little bit back, it was frozen to a temperature of -44 degrees. It was sold to traders in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa and Assam. Prantik Chakravarti, how far is this? I mean, are we anywhere closer to finding out how far this has spread? If not in Bengal, then outside Bengal as well?
Yeah. First of all, my fellow speaker who has alleged the state government for this, I just want to state one thing, that yes, it is not a good scenario here. But the thing is that the state government is administering it in a great way. First of all, I just want to quote what the Consumer Minister Shadhan Pandey said. We are chalking out a detailed report on this matter. Once it is complete, we will submit it to the CM. Beside this, thousands packets have been seized.
Said that he himself would not be eating meat.
He
said unless it is cut in front of him, he was not going to eat meat.
Excuse me?
That same minister you're referring to has told us that he is not going to consume meat.
The scenario is bad.
Unless it's cut in front of him.
He is first of all a human being.
Yes, precisely.
It is a problem going on. Yes, we accept that. But it has been going through years after years.
No, but that doesn't
now
mean...
it is the good thing that under the government of Mamata Banerjee, it is being administered in such a great way. The raids have been going on throughout Bengal. 9 have been arrested. Soni Malik has been arrested, the head of this thing. So the government is doing a fabulous job.